And NAACP leaders are not inviting the sitting president to its next national convention, slated for next month here in Charlotte. Organization's president says the decision has nothing to do with political parties. Derek Johnson says President Trump is working against their mission.
For the first time in 116 years, we will not be inviting the President of the United States. There is a conflict with the things that he has done, that he's doing, and things that are being planned with our job.
NAACP President Derek Johnson announced the decision Monday, calling Trump a direct threat to democracy and civil rights. Quote, "Right now it's clear Donald Trump is attacking our democracy and our civil rights. He believes more in the fascist playbook than in the U.S. Constitution. The president has signed unconstitutional executive orders to oppress voters and undo civil rights protections. He has illegally turned the military on our communities, and he continually undermines every pillar of our democracy to make himself more powerful and to personally benefit from the U.S. government." End quote. The statement went on to say extending an invitation would be, quote, "a waste of our time and energy to give a platform to fascism," end quote.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Clown People, right? Because that's all they do at this point, right? It's a complete and total clown show, okay? They are an arm of the Democrat Party. And once again, they are showing us that they, in fact, work on behalf of the Democrat Party, not on behalf of black people or so-called colored people, right? Or whatever, right? Because they have basically snubbed President Trump when it comes to their convention, right? So they're having a national convention in Charlotte. And usually every year they invite the president to come and speak, okay? And, you know, Trump hasn't showed up, right, to any of these convention speeches, so it really doesn't matter. But the fact that they did invite him is very telling, right, in regards to how, again, this organization has essentially become a partisan organization that works on behalf of the Democrat Party, but they're pretending as if this is not political, when it's 100% political. And I want to talk about it, okay, because there are some people, like, for example, the cackling clowns on The View, who believe that this is right, that the NAACP was right to snub President Trump, even though every year they invite the president. They've been doing this for 100 plus years, I believe. But it was right for them not to invite the president because Trump is racist, right? This is what they believe. Take a look.
Our job is to make democracy work and fight to protect democracy. And there's a conflict. There's a conflict with the things that he has done, that he's doing, and things that are being planned with our job.
So the theme of this year's convention is the fierce urgency of now, focusing on political divisions and threats to civil rights. So the question is, does not inviting him send the right message, or is it a missed opportunity? Now, I personally think...
What do you think?
I think it's all right that they didn't invite him, because you generally would invite folks if you thought there could be a dialogue. But there is not a real solid possibility of having a dialogue, a meaningful one with him, about the changes that he's making and how they're affecting. So I think they saved themselves, you know, a chicken dinner. And he'll get somebody who can actually speak to this and how to make the changes. That's my thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, Whoopi. You know, the NAACP, what many people don't understand is it's a nonpartisan organization. And it's also a civil rights organization that has been, and what we have seen with this new Trump administration, Trump 2.0, is you know, he's attacking the civil rights that our ancestors, upon whom we stand on their shoulders, fought for and lost their lives for.
Yeah, see, now you heard that, okay? The hens believe that, yeah, this is right. This is just for the NAACP not to invite President Trump. Now, here's the thing. I don't give a damn, okay? I cannot give one F. I'm pretty sure President Trump does not give one F about not being invited. He never attends, right? So ultimately, it doesn't matter, right? But again, the reason why I'm doing this video is because I find their reasoning to be fascinating, right? They claim that, well, Trump is a threat to democracy, which is a Democrat talking point, by the way, right? A nonpartisan organization, allegedly nonpartisan, using flat out Democrat Party talking points. But yet, if that is your reason, right? If you're saying that democracy is the reason why that you can't invite the president, then you should not invite any Democrats, because Democrats don't believe in democracy. They did not have democracy within their own party when it came to the nomination of Kamala Harris, right? They overthrew Joe Biden against his will, okay? And then they installed Kamala Harris. Nobody voted for her. That's not democracy, right? They rigged their own primaries. That's not democracy. They just basically overthrew their own DNC election, right? That's not democracy. There's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party. So if your whole thing is protecting our democracy, right? Then I don't understand how is it that you can logically justify inviting Democrats, right? But see, again, they will never go through that thought process because it's not about so-called democracy, right? What so-called democracy means is Democrat power and control. That's the only way it actually makes sense, right? When you understand what it actually means when they talk about democracy, you say, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Trump is a threat to Democrat power and control. Yes, that is why you don't want to invite him, okay? What I also found to be fascinating is how he claimed that, well, Trump is sending the military into our communities. And I'm like, what do you mean Trump is sending the military into our community? Trump is not using the military on black people, right? Now, you can make an argument that, well, maybe Trump is using the military on the Latinos, okay, on the Hispanics, on the illegals, but that's not black people. And I don't even think it's accurate to say that he's using the military on the Latino community, right? Because really, he's using the military in a defensive stance, right? It's not for offensive reasons. It's to protect federal agents from domestic terrorists, right? Again, a lot of them happen to be from countries like, Mexico and whatnot, waving foreign flags. But I'm just saying, they're being used defensively, not offensively. But they are being used against the illegals, right? I will say that. So again, who does the NAACP represent? Because to me, it started to sound like, hey, this group right here is just anti-white, right? They represent everybody that's not white, okay? It's not just an organization for the advancement of black people, right? It's not just a black thing. It really is about all so-called people of color, including the illegals, right? Including the illegals. That is who the NAACP is fighting for, right? In fact, they've done more, right, probably for the illegals than they've done for black people, okay? I'm just saying. This organization, I'm not entirely sure why is it that they feel like they're so important in the first place, where this is something that they had to announce. I mean, at the end of the day, the president wasn't going to come, right? I don't think he was going to come. Nobody gives a damn. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, President Trump has actually done a lot of things for black folks, right? If anything, the mass deportations has disproportionately benefited black people the most. See, this is something that Democrats will never admit. They will never admit just how much the mass deportations have benefited black people, in the sense that, one, it keeps the slave labor out of the country. So it keeps these slave laborers from suppressing wages, which, again, directly affect Latino men who are here legally. It directly affects white men. It directly affects black men. Those people, those men who are competing for those jobs in construction, farm work, all the jobs that the illegals do, right? Deporting them helps out all of those people, right? All of those people get a boost, right? Because of the fact that wages are no longer being suppressed. Also, on top of that, it opens up job opportunities for those people, okay? Because you have illegals being deported. So when you talk about those that are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, okay, when you talk about those who need to get in the workforce, actually the mass deportations are very beneficial to those people, right? Again, I think generally speaking, and again, I've said this and I'll say this before, when people talk about, well, what is Trump doing for the black community? Again, the mass deportations disproportionately benefit black men, right? Now, when it comes to the DEI stuff, hey, I can't lie to you. Black women, you're taking an L, right? But the bourgeoisie black women, right? The bourgeoisie blacks, Okay, the master degree blacks, right, that don't have any real skills, the ones that went to school to study underwater basket weaving and feminism and gender studies and blackness and all that stuff. Yeah, they definitely not doing well, right? They definitely are suffering to a certain extent, but that's because they should have had the jobs they had in the first place, right? The federal government gave out a massive subsidy to these women who really don't have any real skills to justify the salaries and the jobs they had with the federal government. So it's a net positive for society, right? To be honest with you, what President Trump is doing with the federal government. Yes, it may disproportionately affect so-called black women, but again, that's because they should have had those jobs in the first place, right? They should go to the private sector and compete in the private sector for employment. So again, these people, they're just at this point anti-Republican, anti-conservative, anti-white. That's what they are at this point. Okay. So with that being said, Stephen A. Does not agree with the NAACP, and I want to react to his take on this situation. So without further ado, let's get into it.
You don't get to ignore him, is my point. He has been the most powerful, the most influential member of the GOP since 2015. How does you refusing to invite him, ostracizing him, not wanting to hear what he has to say to you all, how does that help you? How? I'm not saying agree with him. I'm not saying side with him. I'm not saying befriend him. I'm not saying any of those things. But ignoring him ain't going to get it done. Not if you truly want to be about the business of helping folks, particularly the desolate and disenfranchised in our country, the urban communities throughout America. Not that that's all the NAACP does, because I'm certainly not implying that. All I'm saying is that clearly is who you're interested in helping.
No, they're not interested in helping them, because if they were interested in helping them, they would be supporting the mass deportations. The fact they are not supporting the mass deportations, it tells you everything you need to know about who's actually for those that, again, are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, right? If you're not for the mass deportations, you cannot say that you're fighting on behalf of the working class, right? You cannot say, you cannot make that statement. You're not, okay? You're not fighting for those, because, again, the illegals are one of the main issues when it comes to opportunities, okay? So that's not what they're doing. They're a partisan Democrat Party organization, and I just wish they would just admit the truth. If they just admitted the truth and say, yeah, we're partisan, yeah, we support Democrats, that's it. I'll be like, okay, well, whatever, right? I can't be mad because you're being honest with me, right? But it's the fact they're being dishonest about it. They're trying to pretend as if we're for people of color. No, you're just anti-white, right? You're anti-white and you're pro-Democrat. That's what you are, and you're anti-Trump.
Ignoring him and not even inviting him to come and speak at your convention, what's that going to accomplish? For the first time in a 116-year history, you're not inviting a president. Are you trying to tell me that there's no president that has been as offensive to the NAACP as Donald Trump in 116 years? Are you really making that argument? That no matter what you think about Donald Trump, that's the only person, that's the only president of the United States that you've been able to say that about in a 116-year history of the NAACP. 116 years. Doing the math, that goes back to 1909. Since 1909, there's no president that has ever been more offensive to the NAACP than Donald Trump. Is that your argument? Let's say for the sake of argument that it is for the moment. Other than the progressive left, who's going to definitively agree with your position? You might have folks out there that want to contribute to the causes of the NAACP that are center left and center right. They may not agree with Donald Trump either, but they recognize the importance of being able to work with the President of the United States.
Well, no, Stephen A., they don't realize that because the Democrat Party doesn't work with the President of the United States, right? So Democrats aren't working with them. Then the NAACP can't do it because, again, they're a Democrat Party organization. Again, that's what people got to understand. When Stephen A. said, well, what does this accomplish? Well, it doesn't accomplish anything. That's the point. Just the NAACP doesn't accomplish anything. They don't accomplish anything when it comes to this. They don't accomplish anything when it comes to anything ever. They're an organization that, quite honestly, in my opinion, really is unnecessary, right? Very unnecessary. I'm not sure why they still exist, okay? But again, this idea that, well, you know, they can have a conversation with Trump, I think it's a valid point because President Trump is the type of guy that he will listen to people who make good arguments to him, right? He is the type of person that is open to changing his mind or being swayed by people in the room, right, who are making certain arguments. And again, if you want to basically advocate on behalf of so-called people of color, right, if you care about these programs so much, then you would think they would use this as an opportunity to express to the president, hey, this is why we care about these programs. This is why you should keep these programs, right, or whatever, if they really felt that way. But see, again, to them, it's more about being an arm of the Democrat Party rather than actually creating real conversation or trying to essentially affect the president's thinking when it comes to some of this stuff. Because for them, being partisan is more important than actually standing up for the things they claim they believe in. That's the crazy part about it. Because, again, we've seen President Trump be swayed by this stuff before, right? We've seen President Trump do things that, you know, you could argue disproportionately are beneficial to the black community. Like, for example, HBCU funding. We've seen the opportunity zones. We've seen the pardons. Again, I will argue mass deportations, throw that in there as well, too. We've seen President Trump be willing to do things that, you know, hey, you can say, hey, kind of disproportionately benefits black folks. If the NAACP was smart, you know, they try to cozy up to President Trump and see if they can kind of persuade him to do what they feel like he should be doing, right? But they can't even do that. They can't even do that. Which, I mean, really shows you that these aren't very sophisticated actors, right? They're not very sophisticated because they were sophisticated. They put the partisanship aside and say, you know what? Let's take advantage of the fact that President Trump seems to be the type of guy where, again, you can kind of persuade him on some things, right? If you present it to him in the right way, okay? If you say, hey, you know, President Trump, I think that black folks, so-called people of color would love you, you know, if you did this, if you did that, right? If you thought about this, you thought about that, they would love you, right? If you said something like that, if you approach it like that, who knows? Maybe you would get some things done. But again, these are not the smartest people in the world. They're really not.
Just think about it. I don't think this is the right move. If all of us had to like the people we had to deal with and do business with, how would business ever get done in this country if not this world? It's a rhetorical question, Mr. Derek Johnson. I know you know the answer.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters that much, Stephen A., right? I don't know if President Trump would have attended. Based off history, I don't think he would have attended. But, you know, hey, it's a missed opportunity either way, right? The fact that the NAACP is refusing to invite him, again, it just shows that they are, in fact, a partisan organization. I still don't understand why they exist at this point. I think the only thing that I've seen or heard them do is to issue travel warnings for so-called people of color not to go to places like Florida, red states that they don't like, okay? But outside of that, I don't think they're really doing that much. And I'm not entirely sure who would attend that convention. I'm damn sure not going to attend it, right? I'm not sure who would go to that convention. Who would sign up to go to a convention like that, right? I mean, who cares, right? Who would really waste a day attending an NAACP convention? I would never waste my time like that. And who knows, you know, maybe it's a good thing that the president's not going to be wasting his time either. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, you share a black conservative perspective. Peace.